Beautiful overcast day, great for a drive in the brand new 2024 Lexus TX 350. Welcome back, you guys. Here is an all-new model from Lexus. This is their new 3-row SUV built to replace the Lexus RX L, which was the extended wheelbase of the RX. Had a little bit more of a sloped back, which a lot of SUVs have got going on these days, whether you like that or not. I'm more of a fan of this traditional, I guess you could say, SUV shape. It's a little bit more boxy, a little bit more square and muscular. First, we're gonna go for a drive, because that's what we're here for. Then I'll do a kind of rundown of the interior, and then we'll step back outside here and I'll give you a rundown of the exterior. First things first though, these door handles are not like a mechanical. This doesn't pull out or anything. There's just a button in here and it just opens. It kind of makes it feel a little bit more premium and executive. It does have a good feel to it. I like that. And then of course on the interior, when we're opening it from in here, it's just a button. And then of course a mechanical redundancy there just in case the battery dies. All right, I'm gonna start off in normal. We do have sport drive mode as well. We'll get into that, eco, and then custom, which we can adjust our powertrain, just how sensitive the throttle is, steering, a little bit more weight, and then AC if we really wanna go for that econ driving experience, which I don't see. I wouldn't see a need to do that, but I'm just gonna start out in normal here, and then for you guys, I'll keep the all-wheel drive monitor up here because these are all, at least here in Canada, spec'd with all-wheel drive. In the States, you can get them with front-wheel drive. But here, there's still snow on the ground, as you guys can see, so it may come in handy. Let's go for a drive. Starting price for the TX 350 here in Canada, $69,000 or right around $55,000 USD base price. This one, as tested, $83,000 Canadian or $69,000 USD for the top spec, the executive. So the TX 350 is the base model TX. There is also a 500H, which is a non-plug-in hybrid, and then there's the 550H, which is a plug-in hybrid. That one, the top spec, comes with about 400 horsepower. Here, we do have a 2.4 liter turbocharged inline-4, putting out 275 horsepower, 317 pound-feet of torque, which may not seem like a whole lot for an SUV that looks this large, but I feel like Lexus has done an incredible job at just making this feel a little bit smaller than it is. And you know, part of that comes down to the steering, part of that comes down to the suspension, and of course the wheelbase here, which we'll get to. Like I said, this one I'm driving today is the executive. In the States, the trim packages are named a little bit differently. You have just base, premium, and luxury, versus here, the base is called the luxury, which is super confusing country to country. And then the mid spec is ultra luxury. And then here, of course, we have the executive. But how does it drive? First off, it's got enough power. It's got good torque. Of course, the engine here is mated to an 8-speed automatic. The plug-in hybrids get the 6-speed because that uses Toyota's Max hybrid all-wheel drive system, which adds the ELSD. Also, those higher-end models add adaptive suspension and rear steer, which is really cool. I will say the engine's good. It's got punchy torque. It's, you know, it works here. It's not the most refined, I wouldn't say. And maybe you guys can hear a little bit through the mic, but there is more engine noise here than I would like. There's also been a couple of unnecessary noises that I don't know. Now, I really don't know what they are, coming from the front of the car when I take a right turn and accelerate from a stop. See if I can replicate that a little bit later. But as far as engine noise, just not as quiet as I would have expected. It's not bad though. As a whole, the car rides beautifully. It's, to me, on the softer side of a lot of the other SUVs that I've driven recently that try to create a hunker down feeling, but they just do that via suspension that is way too stiff. So even though we don't have the adaptive suspension here, I'm happy to say, even over that big bump there, we've got great damping here. And you know, half throttle and we're moving. Of course, the 8-speed has the option to be shifted manually, so if we just hit our electronic shifter down here to manual, we do have these great paddle shifters. I will say, I love the steering wheel that Lexus has put on the TX. Now, this is the first new Lexus I've driven. Honestly, the first Lexus I've driven since the, what is it, 08, 09 ISF that I drove, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. So it's been a minute, but I love this steering wheel. Light steering, very light steering here, low effort vehicle, and good response from the transmission. If you guys notice, I have our boost gauge up there. We can customize our gauge cluster exactly how we want. Now that's where I will bring up the CX-90. The CX-90 in that inline 6 is just so much more refined than this inline 4, and for the money, that CX-90, even in factory base trim, you still get way more power here for about $20,000 less, Canadian dollars that is, than you get here. So just to put that in perspective, and also that comes with a mild hybrid system aiding in torque, and when you're coming up to a red light, the engine will actually shut off. It's a more refined experience in that car, which is surprising because traditionally Lexus is like, that's the premium luxury brand, right, from Toyota, but Mazda has really stepped their game up. So that's a comparison I can make. You get more power for way less money, and it's more refined. And the MDX, a little bit less refined than the CX-90. It is inherently, because it's a V6, but that vehicle, that's where the driving dynamics come in. Of course, you get the all-wheel drive system with real torque vectoring, super handling all-wheel drive, real torque vectoring in the rear. So as far as spirited driving dynamics, nothing beats the MDX in this category, in my experience. Going to sport here. Sport mode will hold gears. See, it'll keep it there, about 3,500 RPM. Then we're ready to punch it. The turbo's ready to go right there again. I don't know if you guys heard that there. That's the noise I was talking about. Maybe the mic doesn't pick it up, but it's like a clicking sound. It does not sound nice. When you're just cruising here, it is nice and quiet. Road noise is minimal. Wind noise is minimal. It's just very smooth. The car does exactly what you want it to do. So the all-wheel drive system here is full-time all-wheel drive, and there are a couple of differences between this and the 500H, that non-plug-in hybrid, of course, like I mentioned, that adds the E-axle in the back, so torque distribution is a little bit different. Here we have a varying torque distribution between 75 front, 25 rear, and 50-50. Whereas with the E-axle in the back and the non-plug-in and the plug-in hybrid, you have a maximum torque of 80% going to the rear. So it's a little bit more rear bias, and of course, if you've ever driven, a modern hybrid or a plug-in hybrid, the instantaneous torque you get back there, there's a huge difference. So maybe you wouldn't feel it as much with a heavy vehicle like this powering out of a corner, but it's there and it's worthy to know. But I will show you guys. If I just stop here, the cameras come up. I will note the cameras here, amazing, great quality, one of the best quality cameras that I've seen, period. And this is also something you get with the executive pack, something that adds. The parking assistance, which will park for you effectively. One thing I don't like, if we're stopped, I can't just choose to bring up the rear camera. But in order to get that rear camera, I do have to put it in reverse, which is kind of frustrating. And this camera setup, because I just came to a stop, this happens at, let's say, a red light, which is great. But then what do I want to do? How do I change my drive mode, right? So in order to do that, I do have to hit exit. Let's say I wasn't on this menu and I was on Android Auto. I'd have to hit like 2 buttons to get out of Android Auto, go to the main menu, go to vehicle, go to drive mode, and then change my drive mode, right? That's 5 or 6 button presses. That is frustrating. And that's where the MDX shines specifically, because they just have a stack there, and you boop, boop, you have your different drive modes, right? So this is where it's a little bit catered towards the luxury. The focus here isn't really on the amazing driving dynamics, which is fine. That's not the TX market. That's not the TX buyer. There's a lot of room in here. Of course, this is the executive model. So what do you get with the executive model? Well, on the exterior, you get adaptive high beams. You get those 22-inch wheels, which I think look very good. They're not over the top. They're just like a classic luxury look. I love that. You also, of course, like I mentioned, get the 360 cam, the parking assist, and all those safety features. You get a 21-speaker Mark Levinson audio system, which is fantastic. And of course, you get the option for captain's chairs. And that is the only way you can get heated and ventilated second rows. If you go with these captain's chairs, that makes it a 6-passenger, or you can spec it with the bench in the middle here, and that would be a 7-passenger. You also get the heads-up display. Now, this is what I will begin with. It's one of my favorite heads-up displays. Now that brings us to the steering wheel. Great steering wheel here, like I mentioned, love this. I wasn't sure if I was gonna like these kind of haptic feedback controls here. It's not, though, like what VW has done with the Golfs. What it's basically just doing, and there are little kind of imprints there, so you can feel it with your thumb, so you do not have to look down at what you're doing, but it comes up on the heads-up display what you're about to press. So if I move my thumb around here like this, it will highlight what I'm about to press on the heads-up display. Super useful. This is one of my favorite heads-up display features that I've seen, period. I think they've handled this brilliantly. Lexus, good on you. And then of course you can change from your displays here. We can change our cruise control modes. We can change our lane keep assist, which is here. And even these are haptic over here as well. So just very actually simple to use. I honestly, my knee-jerk reaction was, I'm gonna hate this. I used it for a couple of days and I love it. So that's that. We have some piano black here on the dash. Of course, here's our display here. Now, versus the Mazda CX-90, all of our HVAC controls here are digital, except for the temperature knob. So I do like that. Of course, we can sync them up. If we hit that, and then they're the same. Everything feels high quality here. Physical volume knob. Thank you, Lexus, for keeping that. And then, of course, we have our defrost as physical buttons. So only a couple of physical buttons here. There's actually not much difference in kind of the theory behind this versus the CX-90. I do prefer the CX-90's just single strip of physical buttons that separates the HVAC from their kind of widescreen minimal screen up on the dash. It just cleans the dash up a little bit nicer, and it allows for more materials to be shown and to be closer to the driver. Whereas here, the Alcantara here, which I do love, it kind of adds a good warmth to the cabin. And that luxury that you would want and all this soft touch materials, but it's like way over there. It's not, you know, Mazda's interior kind of feels like it wraps around you a little bit better, which I do like. And then of course we have the stitching over here continued, and our Mark Levinson audio system. I do prefer the ELS in the MDX, but that's just me. There's nothing wrong with this system. It's a great system. And then here's a cool kind of feature. We have removable cup holders. I guess if that's your thing, easy to use, easy to get back in if you just want more space here. You might be thinking, well, okay, yeah, here's our wireless charger. That's all the room? Well, no, this slides back and it reveals a little bit more space here. A little bit of wood trim here, which is nice. And then our center console here opens up like a split design, like a lot of Mercedes and the Mazda CX-90 does as well. But these kind of pivot like this so that you can still rest your elbow. Minor touch like that, but I love it. And then the seats, of course, we have our leather seats here with the Alcantara. Great seats, awesome seats. They have plenty of control and great bolsters, even though this isn't really catered to the enthusiast, kind of hard driving sport SUV segment. They hold me in great. It's a great seat. Let's go back to the second row and see what we have back there. Very easy to get in back here. We've got our sunshades and then our captain's chairs. So plenty of room back here. We are able to recline these. There we go. And move them forward and back. And this is something the TX has over the CX-90. This whole contraption here is removable. So that's super handy and would be in certain scenarios, I'd imagine. Of course, we also get the pano roof. So 2 ways to do this. We either just have a button here or we have the manual control here. Just hold that. That allows us to get back here. Then we have our third row, but let's go to the back. We'll bring these up. Excuse all my equipment here, but if we want to bring them up, just hold those for a second. It'll go by itself. A little bit slow. It's slow on the decline as well, but it's nice that it's there. The one thing the TX does amazing is just how much cargo room is actually back here. A lot more cargo room back here than the CX-90, and I'm not sure about the MDX, but just I'll put up the numbers on the screen versus the CX-90. It's night and day. So yeah, you get more power with the CX-90, but here you get a lot more cargo room. Very practical vehicle here. Great loading and unloading area here. Some leather, stitched leather. Of course, we do also have our USB-C. Should I sit back here? I should probably sit back here. All right. And they're still not up. Yeah, so plenty of room if I move this back. And this seat is very far back to where you could put it. You would have even still a little bit more room to go there if you're an average size human. So much headroom back here. Great amount of headroom, and that's what we get when we don't have a sloped back SUV that's trying to look cool. A cup holder, a little bit of a storage area there, and of course, the recline back here as well. All right, let's do a quick walk around on the exterior, and then we'll finish up. Love this color, by the way. Blue Mica Metallic, I believe it's called. If you spec this car online, it'll look a lot more bright. It's a lot darker in person, I found. It's very dirty, I apologize for that, but here it is, TX 350. Do you guys like the way it looks? Now, this is based on the Lexus GAK platform, same as the NX and the RX, but of course the TX makes a point of kind of bridging the gap between the RXL, what was the RXL, and the GX, which of course is the off-road focused, much larger SUV, locking differentials, all that stuff. God, I love the way that thing looks. But this is a lot closer to that in how, like I mentioned, you got a lot more room in the back. Now, what have they done to separate it from the RX? Well, the track width is wider here. So it is a larger vehicle. Visually, it's much larger than the RX. And they've increased chassis rigidity here to kind of create that less road noise and all that stuff on the interior, create a more seamless driving experience, although they've tried to keep it light. So a sign of that, aluminum hood and front fenders here. Big bulge in the hood. The TX kind of looks angry. Let me know what you guys think, this versus the CX-90. I like the way this thing looks. It looks great. This has just about a 6-inch shorter wheelbase than the CX-90, but the entire vehicle is actually a couple inches longer. And how that's done is basically what Mazda did is they pushed the wheels as far out as they could go to either side. So here we have a much larger overhang, both on the rear and on the front than the CX-90. So the presence of the two vehicles are totally, totally different. Let me know what you guys think. Of course, it's got the signature now Lexus grille here. Great clean lines coming all the way from this brushed aluminum up the headlight, over the fender, swooping down here into the back. And then here, they've kind of made it look like the roof is floating at the back here, giving it a more streamlined, kind of quick look. The best automotive trend right now, depending who you ask, the light bar. Luckily, we don't have any black plastic cladding here. It's all body color. I could do without the chrome up here. that's just me. Nissan Infiniti does this a lot. I think Lexus can do better than that. They're better than that, come on. Yeah, there it is. There's the TX 350. Let me know what you guys think. The TX 350, its biggest downfall is the price. That's it. I mean, versus CX90, not only do you get a whole ton more power for the money, but it's more refined in general. But here, you get a whole lot more space, tons more cargo space, and third row headroom. So yeah, let me know what you guys think, and we'll be back very soon.